Hello and welcome everyone to Fit Enough. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sai, and in this podcast we make strength training simple.
What's been going on this week, Sai?
Did we say strength training or fitness? Or health and fitness?
Strength training.
We make strength training simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apologies. False.
We'll double check after. Tell us.
This week, so this is week 2 since we've been back from Vietnam?
Week 2 I think so.
2 and a bit. Feels like we're properly settled back into Sydney now. And we've been, I guess our main focus really has been the bands, strong band. And we've entered excitingly into phase 2, which means we're starting to tell more people about it. So we set up our Instagram page maybe 3 weeks ago now. And now we're starting to reach out to people in our wider network who we can start telling about, like people who work in gyms, physio studios, people who might be able to just help with any business business advice.
People who have been through it before.
Yeah. So it feels real, like we're actually telling people who might be interested or might be able to help or be able to shape things for us and get that sort of honest feedback, which is really exciting and scary.
Mm-hmm. Scary in a good way.
Yeah.
Because we got the bands, right? So the
Yes.
samples signified the end of phase 1, beginning of phase 2, because we are happy with what we got. And we were like, right, this is it. We can start telling people and seeing if people are interested.
Yeah. We've got our photo shoot next weekend.
Yeah.
Where we'll take proper pictures that we'll use on our online store, which is very exciting. And then after we've taken the pictures, while they're still in box, pristine condition, we're then gonna test the shit out of it and get lots of people to try it as well, parade them around Sydney, and hopefully, a few people will be interested in using them.
That will become our full-time job of just walking around Sydney with the bands.
Which sounds great.
No time for anyone else.
Yeah, I thought during the pandemic, postmen, that was a good job during the pandemic, just walking around, delivering mail, staying fit. Anyway.
Yeah, I suppose nothing really changed. It probably did for postmen and women.
During the pandemic?
Yeah.
I think people were more likely to, it was very exciting to get a visit from the postman. Yeah. Or the post people.
But then at the same time, some people must have been very scared if you were a post person coming to the door and they're like, stay back.
Yeah.
And you're like, I've just got some post for you.
I need to give you this. Leave it and then, yeah.
Trying times.
Yeah. But anyway, in another life, I'd be a post woman.
Plus, with your new Apple Watch, imagine the steps you'll be getting on that.
Yeah, I'm a bit late to the party. I got an Apple Watch
Go on, show it off. Don't be shy.
We got it. It's a refurbished one.
We got it.
I got it. I promise I didn't. You didn't get it. It's a refurbished one. I think it's the same model as yours.
Maybe.
It's a fairly old one, but it's great. I'm definitely in the honeymoon stage with my Apple Watch, just using it for everything. And the tech startup that I work for, Gojo, who are great, and you basically get points and you compete against your colleagues. The points are based off logged activity. So I'm logging everything now. So when
automatically?
Can you automatically log it?
I don't know. You work for them.
Oh, so anything you log on your Apple Watch or any other wearable, it can automatically sync to Gojo. So every time I'm going for a surf, start, stop. Going for a long walk, start, stop.
It's quite fun.
Even the short walks, start, stop.
Start, stop.
Start, stop. No, well, at least outside 5 minutes.
Up to the bathroom, start, stop.
No, not allowed to do that. No incidental steps.
Well, I've been seeing you do it, so.
I haven't. I promise I haven't. I'm very, very obsessed with it at the moment. It is handy. I go through phases of wanting to track things and not wanting to track things, and now I'm in a fun tracking phase.
Yeah, which is nice because then in the phases when you're not tracking, you still have an idea of like if you're maybe a little bit below your usual activity, or like food is a good one. Track your food for a week and then you can be like, perfect.
Yeah.
If you want to be more stringent and track for longer, you can, but
Yeah, I definitely find that helpful. Like, it's definitely, life is more enjoyable when you're not tracking, but the tracking can help you, or helps me actually know what I'm having, because when you're not, like, I think it's very easy to just eat a little bit more unhealthily, or just like have, I love a snack and I just go to the cupboard and have peanut butter or whatever it is, and you don't realize how much it does add up. So you can just see, like, yeah, for me, it's just helpful to just reset, know exactly what I'm consuming. Am I having enough protein? Am I having enough of these other nutrients? What is the sort of overall calories? And then and then you know how it makes you feel. So then after a while, you don't have to track, and you know how you feel. And when you start feeling a bit off, you know it's something that might be to do with the diet. Then I go back into trying it again for a week.
I would love to be able to be the type of person that just throws caution to the wind, and some weeks are different to others, some days are different to others. But I know myself, and I know as much as I enjoy having the freedom to, in that example, eat what I want, I also know I really enjoy working towards something. And if the numbers and the data help with that, then it's like striking a balance and making sure that both things are happening.
Yeah, I think as long as it's a helpful tool that helps guide your behavior, but doesn't like completely dictate everything you do. And it becomes like a hindrance to other things in life that you enjoy, then I think that is a really good tool. But it's definitely not essential for everyone. It depends on. But that could be another podcast topic on tracking food.
Yeah, tracking food, how it helps with your progress. Speaking of which, today we are talking about what progress looks like in all its different shapes and forms, because there are a lot. When it comes to strength training, there are a lot of different ways that we can make progress. And I think for whatever reason, whatever information is thrown at us, we get very set on what progress should look like, when really the spectrum is much, much bigger, and we can find progress in many different areas when it comes to just physical activity in general, but specifically strength training, right?
Yeah.
And we'll have a few of our favorites on this list, but we're going to rattle them off.
I think one actually that I didn't put on the list is the most obvious one. So I think the majority of people, this might be my biased opinion, but I think most people who want to start strength training, particularly younger people, I don't know, under 40s, want to do it because they want to look different. They want to look more toned, and that is definitely one way of making progress. And I think a lot of people think, I guess, like what is being toned is essentially gaining more muscle mass, while for a lot of people it might be reducing body fat at the same time. And that's one goal and one way of making progress that you can definitely do through strength training. And that could be a whole other podcast about how strength training does, how it works to change your body composition. I think a lot of people would be interested in it, like high reps versus low reps, high weight versus low weight, Pilates, yoga, traditional strength training, HIIT, like those things. How, like, can all of them do it? And the answer is to different extents, but we can cover that another time. Went off on a tangent there, but yeah, I think that's number one. It could be, progress could look like, changing your body composition, whether that's through photos or other metrics.
But I think both of us, probably the reason why you didn't put it down is because both of us tend to acknowledge that but not focus on it.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it is something that is at the forefront of most people's minds when they come into a new exercise routine. Like, they're coming into it to be able to achieve some sort of aesthetic or physical change. but I guess we know through experience of training ourselves, but also training with others, the pressure and the hindrance, and I guess the cons of focusing on your aesthetic, what that can do to your progress, in favor of maybe other things that may be slightly more beneficial in our eyes.
Yeah, and I think we both purposely don't focus on that in our approaches as trainers, because it's completely saturated. When you go on Instagram and, you know, you type in personal trainer onto Google, like, it's all about like getting that toned look. Like in photos of the PTs, they'd be topless. What you could see their six packs and they're shredded, and they're the aspiration that you should, you know, you should aspire to. Aspiration, inspiration. I guess they both work.
Yeah.
And I think we have purposely wanted to not promote that, even though that is something that a lot of people will want, and we can help people with that, but we don't want it to be, we don't want to be pushing that as the ultimate goal when it comes to strength training, because there's so many other benefits and other ways of making progress, which we will come on to on our rather long list.
Yeah, I think we can definitely come back to that one after we highlight some of the ones that we prefer. So the first one, what does progress look like? I guess first of all, why are we trying to achieve progress in strength training? Like what's the point of progressing these things?
Yeah, so I guess the most obvious one when we talk about progressing in strength training is building strength. And the reason why you want to progress with that is the more strength you have, the more helpful it is to daily life. So whether that's just being able to be independent and capable, and to be able to get on with your daily routine with minimal barriers. And that's even more important for people, of course, who are older, sort of over 60s in particular. But everything you do now will help towards that. There's a lot of muscle memory. So you're sort of, like to say, like banking into your like retirement fund when you're strength training to be able to cash out later. So it's really important from that point of view of being physically capable, but then just all round the health benefits you get of reducing various diseases, and just, all round health is like incredible what you can get with strength training. So you want to generally get as strong as you can to an extent, obviously not at the detriment of some other really important things, but generally the stronger you are, the better.
Yeah,
so
I think it'd be hard to get to that position. But it's like I said it on our post yesterday, like strength training is like unlocking a superpower in so many different ways, and you've got it at your disposal. Like we're trying to make it so easy to access that you could reap so many benefits as a result of something that could literally take you an hour a week.
The other thing, why progressing is really important in strength training is the self-esteem and the confidence you get and the mental health benefits. And I think I didn't really understand that when I like first did my PT course, was like learning about it. It's like, it increases self-esteem. I was like, okay, like cool, how? But there's like a number of ways. There's like physically feeling more capable.
Yeah.
But then the other side of it is it's the act of keeping promises to yourself and seeing the results of those promises, which I think in strength training is really powerful. Because the more you show up, the more you're saying, I'm going to do this thing that's hard.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see it through, and I'm going to do it again and again and again. And that is the ultimate way to build self-esteem and self-confidence, is keeping those difficult promises that you keep to yourself, which, is very powerful stuff.
It's huge. It's like, it's one of the best things you could do, in my opinion, to increasing the quality of your life. And that's like in the here and now, what you can do physically, but also what you feel capable of mentally. And also, like you say, it's that investment, it's that pension that you then unlock later in life as well, when you're like, oh my God, all of those years of strength training and keeping fit and active means that I can continue to have a really active life in my later years as well. So yeah, progress can be short term, medium term, much, much longer term. The idea is it can look like loads of different things, but we're doing it for this specific reason of basically being like a healthier version of yourself, physically and mentally, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, increase weight and resistance.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about?
We love tracking this as PTs, and it's like a really obvious and clear way to see whether you're getting stronger or not. So when you're exercising and you're doing a strength-based exercise, let's take a goblet squat as an example. So holding the weight in front of you, normally a kettlebell or a dumbbell, that's the word. When you first start, you might be using a 5 kilogram dumbbell, and you can do maybe 10 reps. And after those 10 reps, they feel really hard. Your form might start to look a little bit shaky, and that that's sort of at your 9 out of 10 limit there. And then in a couple of weeks' time, you might feel like you can increase that weight to 7.5 kilograms, and you can do the 10 reps again, and you sort of are at that same point. That is a good way of showing I've made some progress in increasing the weight.
Yeah, because imagine if you have this goblet squat, for example, and you doing 5 kilos for 10 reps is you at your like strength threshold. If we start to perform at that strength threshold, we send a signal to the body that's saying you need to get a little bit stronger here because we're doing things that are pushing ourselves to our limit. So you send a signal to the body that it needs to get stronger. As a byproduct, it needs to increase the lean muscle mass that you have, and that goes back to what we were talking about a more toned composition, toned in quotation marks. And then you are noticing that physical change when you come back to the goblet squat again and you can do 7.5. Your body has responded to the stress that you've put on it. It's adapted, making you stronger, those leg muscles in particular. And now this time around you can push more weight, and that's going to have loads of carryover into everyday life, obviously.
And it's so cool, like being able to like step up the progress. And I think it's important to say that when you first start, you're likely to make quite quick progress. A lot of it might not be brute strength. So a lot of it, which is another point, which we might as well talk about now, is increasing your mind-muscle connection, increasing your confidence in the movement. So you're getting used to the movement, you've practiced it enough where you don't have to overthink it every time. And okay, my back should be doing this, my knee should be doing this, my ankle should be doing this. And then you no longer really have to think about it in those terms, you just do the movement. So a lot of it is just building up that mind-muscle connection, mind-body connection, and then it comes to building that strength, and you can progress quite quickly at the start, and then it slows down. So, after you've been strength training, I've got some clients who've been training with me for like over 3 years, and it does take, it's like quite 6, 8, even 12 weeks before we might start increasing the weight on certain exercises, and that's a really big win. It's like it's all things are working here.
And you don't necessarily have to do more, do you? But it does take more effort in the work you are doing to see that progress later on down the line.
Yeah.
So it's, I think people often have this misconception of like, oh, but if I get X amount stronger, I'm going to have to do X amount more work, more volume. But that's not the case. If anything, you can do less.
Yeah.
But then I think that's also something that's maybe it's something that I get so excited about. I think you do as well, but is possibly overlooked by people who are just kind of new to strength training or going through the motions. When you're performing, again, let's take the goblet squat as an example for the first time, and you feel that mind-muscle connection, you feel like your movement is becoming much more proficient. It's easier. That drive of the knees out becomes second nature. You're literally changing the plasticity of your brain. Like you're creating new neural pathways in your brain.
Another podcast idea.
Yeah, that is improving your movement in that certain capacity, in that certain exercise. And if you just stop and look at things like that, like you can do an exercise for 1 or 2 sets and you're already improved in that movement. Like it genuinely is a superpower.
Yeah, it's so good for brain health, like learning new skills, particularly skills with your body, like learning how to control your body in different ways is amazing for keeping your brain healthy. And that's a whole different thing. But yeah. Cool.
I think it's why we love talking clients through the technique of things as well, because it is a learning process. It is practice. It isn't just all about progress, even though we are talking about it. It's
progress looks very different.
Yeah, it's about practicing a new skill and recognizing just how much change you're creating for yourself, rather than just like, he's asked me to do 10 goblet squats again, let me just do this and get it over with. It's like, no, this is a potential for so much improvement here. Anyway, relax, Si, Jesus. Increasing lean muscle mass.
Sort of touched on that already. Do you want to talk anything more?
No, I guess we've kind of covered it, sorry. But if we go back to the idea of composition, when we look at strength training, predominantly, as the name suggests, you want to be improving your strength. You want to be increasing the amount of weight you can push. As almost like a byproduct of that, your body will need to increase your lean muscle mass in order to meet the demands of this increase in strength that you're putting on it. By association, and this is one reason in particular why I don't necessarily like clients focusing on weight loss, by association to that increase in lean muscle mass and strength, with all things being equal, you will see a decrease in your body fat percentage, like as a byproduct. And therefore, when we start to put pressure on ourselves to lose weight, it can almost like counterproductively create this scenario, this environment of do or die. Like if I don't lose the weight, catastrophe is going to happen. Whereas actually, if you didn't even focus on it, your strength training would take care of the aesthetic change that you want. Not saying that it's easy, but if you shifted your focus, that would happen in the background anyway, and you could lose any of the pressure or slightly more negative aspect of training that comes with weight loss.
And I think sometimes over-focusing on that weight loss instead of building muscle and strength and sort of good movement patterns is it can focus your behaviours on the wrong thing or things that are quite negative. So rather than thinking, you know, I'm going to follow Matt's nutrition plan so that I can, you know, perform at the gym at my best. It's like, I'm going to...
You know who you are.
I'm going to, you know, actually, I think if I just eat 500 less calories today, I'm going to lose more weight. So, but then you feel like, you either feel like shit or you just don't perform at your best. And you're not building that muscle. You're not really triggering that body recomposition that you're after because of those like negative behaviors that I guess people think is going to drive them
to be positive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think by focusing on the strength, you're getting everything.
Best of both worlds. That could be another podcast in itself. We're going to have to go back through this one and take notes. But yes, muscle mass, great to focus on the strength side of things and building muscle mass. It's an overgeneralization, but you always think like, if you look at not even sportsmen or athletes, sportswomen, if you just look at very sporty individuals, they are the individuals that have like an aesthetically pleasing physique, right? They're rarely again, don't want to overgeneralize, they're rarely worried about how much they're eating, whether they're eating too much. They're much more focused on, can I perform so that I can play my sport to the best of my ability and enjoy it as much as possible. And then the byproduct is a really great aesthetic look. So I think if we started to employ that more with the everyday and move away from this idea of like go into a big bulk and then you shred down and then you get ripped because you're eating next to nothing and doing 2 hours of cardio a day, everyone would be in a healthier position, I think.
Yeah. And I'm going back to sort of like the athletic look. I think it also goes to show like what athlete, like all these different athletes who are performing at their peak, their bodies look so different. Like when you look at the peak, I don't know, like rugby players compared to rowers, compared to cyclists, compared to shot putters, to bobslayers, like they're going to be training to their peak performance and what they want to be achieving, and the the food and the nutrition that is all going to complement what they want to do, and they're going to look so different, and that's going to be true for everyone as an individual, depending on what you want to do. Your level of strength, your sort of physique is gonna be different, and it is ultimately about how you perform. You don't have to be an athlete to perform, but your performance might be being able to go on that long hike on the weekend with your friends and your family, or being able to lift children and grandchildren up in the air.
It's your version of how this looks. It's never a comparison, because comparison is
the thief of joy.
Thank you. Right, next one, increasing repetitions in a set. So we spoke about 10 reps at 5 kilos on a goblet squat. Sticking with that, what's the progression going to be in the coming weeks?
Yes, so repetitions. So you probably want to increase your repetition. So with a squat, it's the number of times you go down and up in that position. And this is probably an easier way to progress than weights, particularly when you're doing that sort of 8 to 15 rep range. Like, one, it's easier because from a very practical point of view, you don't need to have any new equipment. You just do the exercise one more time. And then also because often increasing the weight can make quite a big difference, particularly if you've got like a big jump. Going from a 10 to a 20, for example, is a huge jump for most exercises, particularly if 10 is your sort of starting point, or it might be 10 to a 15, whatever it might be. So this is another way to increase, to show your progress, is when you can do 12 reps of a squat and it feels like 10 reps when you first started. The important thing here is to keep everything else consistent. So you want to keep the weight consistent, you want to keep the exercise variation. So if you're doing a goblet squat, keep that goblet squat. You want to keep your range of motion the same, you want to keep your good quality form the same. And when you keep everything the same and you're managing to increase your reps, that's a really good sign that you're making progress there.
And I think particularly for people who are just starting out, there's going to be a bit of a mental barrier to increasing the weight, because even in that first example of increasing from 5 to 7.5 kilos on the goblet squat, that's a 50% increase in weight. Like that's nothing to stick your nose up at.
Yes.
Something like that. But that can be quite daunting, because if you've just managed 10 reps at the 5 kilos and then someone says add 2.5 to that, add 50%, you're going to be like, I can't do that. Whereas if your coach or PT or internal monologue said, just do one more at the same weight, but just do one more, you're like, I reckon I can push myself one more. And then you do that week after week after week. Let's say you'd probably stop at 15 reps, do you think?
Yeah, I generally don't want to do more than 15 reps before increasing the weight, mainly because it just takes bloody long.
Yeah.
So
I think there are some special circumstances where you can do more, but for the most part, as Sai said, that 8 to 15 rep range is pretty ideal. Even 15, sometimes I think
just goes on forever.
I put my mind in the mind of the clients, and I'm like, what are they going to be saying right now on like rep 13? Like, Matt.
Yeah.
So yes, it can also be a really useful tool to kind of supplement that first one of increasing the weight. It's almost like a bridge. You can say, all right, I'm not going to jump to 7.5, but I am going to do 2 more reps at 5. And then maybe next week I'll have that confidence to go to 7.5. Okay.
There's our reps.
Increasing sets. Interesting, because there's been a fair amount of research on this.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yes. Oh yes. Your stuff.
Yeah, increasing sets is this problem of like what's actually realistic in someone's everyday life. And increasing sets has shown quite often to be more beneficial than just increasing reps within a set. So instead of going to 3 sets of 10 and working your way up to 3 sets of 15, there have been shown to be benefits of actually going from 3 sets of 10 to 4 sets of 10 to 5 sets of 10. And that's mainly because the rest that you get in between sets allows you to kind of recover, recompose yourself, and then go for the next set again with that same movement quality. Whereas if you're challenging yourself with a weight and you start to push into the upper end of that 8 to 15 rep range, some of those reps are going to be slightly more inefficient, less range of motion, maybe the form goes a bit. It's quite likely. So it's kind of like, should we spend a bit more time having a rest and going back to another set, or should we push through and aim for that extra few reps on one set? There are benefits to both, obviously.
Yeah. And I think it's ultimately like the overall work, like volume does matter. So like for how many reps or for how long are you actually putting your muscles under tension? What does that look like? And then also the quality of that, as you mentioned, like if, you know, the last 2 reps, you look like a wobbly sort of spaghetti and you move 2 inches into your squat and back up, like that's not going to be as effective as one really good bodyweight squat. That's a separate thing.
Well, and I think as well, again, going back into the mind of a client, and you say you've got one more set of 15 reps and you're looking at the time, you're going to be late for that meeting, you need to pick up your kids from work, you're just going to be like, let me just fly through these and like whack out 15 very average reps. Whereas it's like, could there be a bit more of a trade-off of having a 90-second break and going back for just 5 more really good reps? I would probably argue for that, but again, it's how much time do these things take?
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I think each of these have, like you say, have their place. They're sort of like tools in your ways of how you can progress. So if you're someone who does maybe have a bit more time that you can dedicate, then increasing sets can be a really great way. But like you say, there's other ways, which we haven't put on here actually, which is increasing the intensity of each set, which is another way of, I guess, like showing progress when you can increase the intensity within a set. But yeah, lots of different ways that can work for everyone's individual circumstance.
And then this one's like another, almost like an indicator of progress, of when you are feeling less exertion when completing an exercise. So you are doing band pull-aparts, and the first time you do them, you think, bloody hell, those are working me. And then do it in week 2, maybe it feels a little bit easier. Week 3, a little bit easier. By week 4, you're like, I am comfortable with these. I can progress them now. I can move in a level on my strong band.
Shameless. Love it.
And then that is like it's like your litmus test for progression. Nothing else is needed to change apart from you have kind of like assessed your level of strength again in that moment and said, this is actually easier than when I was doing it a few weeks ago, and therefore I can up that intensity, like you said.
Yeah, and that's something that we both use, and most trainers will use as like one of the best measures of intensity and of whether it's time to progress, is this RPE, rating of perceived exertion. Like there's like a few different sort of scales, but I like to use the 1 out of 10, and you rate yourself like how hard was this at the end of the set. So by the end of the set, you give a score between 1 to 10. 10 is you could not do another rep without something going. So without you reducing your range, or your form starts to go with the sort of obvious ones. And then a 9 out of 10 is you could do one more rep before your form might start to buckle a little bit. 8 is you could do 2 more reps. And it's definitely something that takes a bit of time for you to get used to the exercises, for you to get used to your body, before you can sort of accurately give a fairly good estimate for that. But once you're sort of in that habit, it's probably the best way to measure how hard an exercise is, and whether that means it's time to progress, or to keep the same, or to make any changes.
And I think that's another good reason as to why you should really be conscious of what you're doing in the exercises. Like we spoke about, the kind of mind-muscle connection, and actually going through the practice of it rather than just tunnel vision, everything needs to progress, because then you're going to get really familiar with what RPE 10, 9, 8 feels like. So then your progression, your progressive overload, and the quality of your strength training is going to be so much more accurate and efficient, because you're really dialed into what your body is actually feeling, instead of just trying to like block off the pain and say, let me just get through this. It's much more about working with your body to say, okay, do we need to stick with this weight for another week? Can we increase it next week? And actually put some kind of conscious thought into these things, which is to a certain degree why people get coaches, but also it's important to teach the client what they actually should and shouldn't be feeling. Quicker recovery in between sessions. This is a good one that gets overlooked, I think, because people are hell-bent on feeling like shit between sessions.
Yeah, so as you get stronger and your body gets more used to the increased demands you're placing on it through strength training, you're going to get way more efficient at doing that, and you're going to need less recovery time. So what that looks like, it might be you have, let's say, when you start strength training, 2 strength training sessions a week, maybe on a Monday and a Thursday, as an example. You're likely to get quite fatigued from it. So you might experience some soreness the next day, maybe even the day after. It shouldn't be too bad. And the more you get used to it, the less soreness you'll feel, which could be another podcast. It's not, feeling sore isn't a sign of that you're definitely making progress, and it's not a sign, like when you're not sore, it's not a sign of you're not making progress. So you want to have enough time in between those 2 sessions so that you can perform at your best again. So what normally happens is it takes you quite a while to recover, and then you won't be able, for example, if at your peak recovery you're feeling your best, you could squat, I don't know, a 20 kilogram goblet squat for 10 reps. If you were to then you did that for 3 sets, if you were then to do that again the next day, it was likely to be quite a big struggle because your muscles are still recovering and they're still sore. But by, a few days after that, you should be able to replicate that again. As you get used to it, you might then be able to do 3 strength training sessions, and you're going to recover well enough before the next one to be able to put that same intensity into it again. Again, there's like different applications and different sort of circumstances. So if you go super, super intense, no matter how fit you are, no matter how strong you are, you're going to need a significant period of recovery. Like if you've just run a marathon, as an example, or if you've just done a powerlifting competition, you're going to need a lot of time. But generally, when we talk about sort of generally getting into a good progressive fitness routine and strength routine, you should start feeling energized and not tired.
I think that's the biggest point here that we can tie into this quicker recovery in between sessions. You are not chasing after muscle soreness. That is a battle you are going to lose. That is a chase you're going to lose. Your training session should leave you feeling energized rather than sapping the energy from you and preventing you from doing other things you enjoy in the coming days. But there has been like quite a consistent narrative at this point where it's like, if you're not sore the next day, have you even worked hard enough? Mm-hmm. It's rubbish. It doesn't make sense. Soreness can be a byproduct of working hard in the gym. It's not an indication of whether you've done enough or too little. So always focus on enjoying your sessions and then giving yourself ample amount of recovery. So more at the beginning of your training journey, and that can start to maybe decrease as you feel it can decrease. And yeah, leaves you feeling energized, doesn't take anything away from the rest of your life, because that is literally the opposite of what strength training should be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a much more concise way of my, but to make it even less concise. I think for lots of people, right at the start, as you like first step into strength training, you probably will feel more tired. You'll feel a bit more zapped, particularly the first perhaps month. But then as you sort of keep going, the opposite should happen. Like you should feel way better than you did before you started strength training, just generally having that energy for everything you do. So give it a bit of time, but definitely, and once you see that sort of switch, that's a really good sign that your body has adapted.
Yeah.
And like Matt said, you should be training to feel energized and not zapped at the end of everything.
Fewer injuries.
Love this one.
Love that.
This is definitely one that has that I'm particularly interested in with strength training. One of my sort of niches is strength training to prevent injuries for people who love taking part in sports. So whether that's running or climbing, whatever it might be, rugby. Often when you go into these activities, even just everyday stuff, just like hiking and just getting on with daily life, if you don't have a baseline strength and I'll say stability as well, which strength training is a big part of, you are putting your body at risk every time you go and do these activities. And that's not saying don't do them, but the more you want to do them, so if you want to get really into running, you want to start competing, you need a baseline sort of strength within your body to be able to tolerate all the demands that you're putting on it. So when you start strength training, you're setting up those really strong foundations to give your body more, cushioning, in the form of muscle, to absorb all of that impact, to really stabilize in all the different sort of twists and turns and positions you're going to be demanding from it, or just the overall load, the overall sort of pavement pounding or walking, whatever it might be, you're putting it in a really good position to stop. You can never say you're going to stop the injuries, but to reduce your risk of those injuries. So, I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of when my clients say, I've never been able to do this type of run or this race or this sort of distance because my ankles just keep getting sprained and I stop. And then when they start strength training, they notice it's no longer a problem for lots of people. Some people will have to work a bit harder. Some people, it's, within a couple of months, they notice such a big difference. But that's definitely one of my favorite ways of making progress with strength training, is getting injured less.
I think health and fitness would be so much easier if it was like, in order to get better and be more resilient when it comes to running, I just need to run more. But unfortunately, it's not like that. And strength training is such a key component of making sure the body feels equipped enough to tackle these kind of challenges you're putting to it. And it just means that you can do the thing that you enjoy so much more because you've done like the work in the background. It's like training in the gym and then going out and playing for an NBA team. Like, you've done all of that work in the background so you can do this thing. So make sure that strength training is a part of your background if you have sports that you enjoy but you feel like they're just causing you too many injuries. Feeling more confident with exercises, we kind of covered that, haven't we? And it's about feeling more confident in your physical movement, feeling more confident in terms of what you feel as though you're capable of, physically and mentally speaking, I guess. But then there are different aspects to confidence when it comes to strength training, of like, if you're working out at home, turning up, stepping on the mat and feeling like you belong there, or like going to the gym and not giving a shit about what other people think because they're just focused on themselves anyway, or like just feeling like you are almost like worthy enough, you have enough value to take care of yourself and go through strength training. So there's no reason why this confidence shouldn't be there as you build your strength training over the weeks and months. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's like a lot of like sense of self that gets put on exercise in particular, any form of exercise where it's like, I am not this person. I am not a gym goer. I'm not a runner. I'm not a this. And as you do those things, you then strip that away, and it's like, it's not about being a runner, or, you know, people might sort of define it differently, but it's about doing it. Like, I guess you do it so you are like, who's to say, what is it, like gym goers and runners and whatever it might be, like look so different. The way they approach that is so different, and as long as you're showing up and you're doing it, there's like no one, you know, you can't say that, oh, I'm not this, because you are, you're doing it.
Yeah, I think something that I found really powerful to go through with clients is focusing much more on like the characteristics of an individual that would be doing the thing that they're maybe nervous or apprehensive about. So taking the gym for an example, and if you have like a performance-based goal, this fly's going to get so annoying. It's kind of like, okay, well, we know that you're a driven individual who has like put down some financial gain that you received from your hard work to kind of go through this process. We know that you're goal oriented because you've specifically said that to me. You're the type of person that shows up for yourself. You're disciplined in every other aspect of your life. Like, these are the characteristics of a person that would, for example, go through 3 rounds of strength training a week. So then the actual act almost becomes irrelevant as to actually what it is, because you're just following through with your characteristics and your values. And I think the more you can do that, the more confident in yourself you become, and the more you will turn up to those scenarios of like, I told myself I'm going to bump up the weight this week and I'm going to do it because I'm confident in who I am and my ability. So I think that's probably my favorite one out of the lot, when you see that confidence improve in people. Better form and having to think less when doing an exercise.
Yeah, so I think we touched on this at the start already. So it's about that mind-muscle connection. So when you start anything new, there's a lot of cognitive load. There's a lot of like, your brain is having to work really hard to try and do this new thing. Like, you know, when you're learning a new language, it doesn't come out fluently. You have to think back of, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? Okay, how do I put that together in a sentence? It's the same thing for when you're doing a new movement pattern. But I think people can put a lot more pressure on themselves. There's something about our bodies and how we move that I think has people wrap up with the identity sort of a lot more. But it's the exact same thing. You need to repetitively do something over and over again, and you will learn, you will improve. Some people are going to be a bit more natural than other people, but we all share that way of how we get better at doing things. So the more you do it, the more it will just become second nature. So, you know, people will sort of learn how to squat. It's like, oh, but I'm like having to think about my knees, and I'm having to think about my hips and my back. And then after like a good few weeks, like just getting those reps in, it just becomes, you don't even notice when it happens, but you just start thinking about it way less, and that comes with consistency, and that's a really great way of seeing the progress that you've made.
I think that language analogy is perfect, because I mean, you've learnt languages before. You know that if you really show up, even the first few weeks, you can make significant progress. Not saying you're going to get fluent by the end of those 3 weeks, but you can really make significant progress if you apply yourself. And I think people who are just starting out, or even people who are 1 or 2 years into their strength journey, will be really surprised at how quickly this process can happen. It only takes a few weeks for you to feel so much more proficient and confident with your form and your movement. But it's just about showing up for yourself and putting in the work, I think.
Definitely. I've just like remembered like a few clients that I've had where, you know, they started training with me and they've already had in their heads like, I'm not good at this. I'm incredibly unbalanced. I have no coordination whatsoever. And then over the course of 3 months, 6 months, a year, like the difference is huge. And they no longer say that because they can do it. They have improved. They are coordinated. It's just taken that consistent practice to overcome that.
And then also you get those people who, like, for example, have been going to the gym consistently for a year, but they still don't count themselves as someone who belongs in a gym, for example. And it's like, that narrative better catch up to what you're actually doing, because things are completely different now.
Yeah, sorry to break it to you, but you are a gym goer.
You need to change that script. So then the last one is feeling more capable, less worried by everyday activities. And this is another one that we both hold aloft, maybe more so than the others.
Yeah, so I think everything we do about strength training, when we're talking about all this progress that you're making, it translates to something. It translates to your everyday life. And when you start doing things that you're no longer worried about, and I think for me, the biggest example is after my ACL surgery. So I've had 2 knee surgeries, and after that, I've had to learn how to do things over from the beginning again. So learning how to just bend my knee again, learning how to walk again, learning how to go around like corners. I was so nervous about, you know, with crutches and then without crutches, of just changing a little bit of direction to turn the corner while I was walking. I wouldn't have gotten better if I didn't train, if I didn't do my physio. Physio is essentially often strength training, and in a very laid out, clear way to overcome a specific issue. So while I was doing those exercises, it took a while, but then now, after, I don't know, maybe it took 6 months to a year of doing those exercises, where I feel very confident turning around corners. I feel confident changing directions. Going surfing, like I was so scared to go sort of surfing when I first started, but I know sort of all the work that I'm doing outside of that is strengthening my knees so that I don't get injured. And yes, I'm at risk. You're at risk when you do anything in life, but you're not going to have a life if you don't risk anything. So I know that, yes, there's a little bit of a risk, but I'm doing everything I can to reduce that. And I don't think about it so much anymore. When we go on hikes and we've got sort of steep hills, I'm way less like worried. I know I'm going to be able to do it. It's no longer a barrier for me. And that's like the best part, is when you say yes to things because you can do them.
I think the best feedback we got from 20 Minute Strength was when we were speaking to Minty, and she said she could compare this specific hike she did a year previously to one she's just done since starting 20 Minute Strength. And she could see a significant difference in how she felt during the hike, how she felt after, her confidence with the hike. I think it was specifically maybe her calves or just her legs in general that used to feel like quite heavy, and now she felt perfectly fine doing it. And that's that's the most heartwarming thing to hear from individuals, but also to recognize in yourself that, like, here's the thing I love doing. I've put in the work to make sure I can continue to love doing it. And in fact, I've actually gotten better at that thing.
Definitely.
And feel more confident in it.
And even everyday activities, like I'm thinking, if you go on an aeroplane, lifting up your sort of hand luggage into the overhead locker. Like, I always want to feel like I'm capable of doing that myself. I'm capable of taking it out and not worrying about that. I've told myself when I was writing that point, a benchmark that I want to have for the rest of my, maybe not the rest of my life, but until
said it now.
For the rest of my life, is if anybody's struggling to carry a fridge up the stairs, I want to know that I can help them.
That's a good point.
I want to be able to carry that fridge with someone up the stairs, and know, I always want to be able to like offer help to people, like to carry my own things. You
watch, in the next couple of days, someone will be carrying a massive fridge up their stairs.
Let me help.
And I'll be like, "Si, you said it." Do you know the one I like is when there's like just a flight of stairs, and most of the time, whenever you see a flight of stairs, you want to do like a little jog up it, and then sometimes when you want to challenge yourself, beat someone next to you, and you have those times where you're maybe not as active as you usually are. You get to the top of the stairs and you're like, "Oh man, I really feel that." Like, feel a little bit breathless, even though it's like 10 stairs. My legs are feeling it a bit. And then maybe when you are a bit fitter, you are a bit more active, and you do that and you don't feel tired at the top of your mini race. You're like, "Oh yeah, hello athlete."
I did used to love doing that on escalators when people would be just waiting on the escalator, and then you'd have like a set of stairs.
And you say, "Watch this."
And then I just take double steps and I'm like zooming past everyone. It's, I've probably got, my own problems that I need to battle, but I felt very good about myself in those situations.
And then the ACL goes. And
Unrelated.
So those are all of the different ways that you can see progress in your strength training. As you can see, there is a lot of them. So just because maybe the weight hasn't moved up in a few weeks, just because maybe you're stuck at doing 10 reps at a certain weight, doesn't mean you're not making progress. Look elsewhere, particularly I think on that kind of like self-esteem, mental well-being side of things. That gets particularly overlooked. And above everything, just make sure you're still enjoying it, I would say.
I'd agree.
What we got going on this week? So we don't speak to them for another 2 weeks.
We have, we're going out for some Lebanese foods tonight. Very excited. And then the biggest thing is next week we've got our photo shoot for our bands. And we'll probably start showing people. So we'll take them out on the streets of Bondi and get people to have a go, use them, and let us know what they think.
Yeah, lots of outreach, lots of emails. And then obviously just our day-to-day work as well.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it, guys.
All right, hope you enjoyed this one. This was episode 5. We'll see you in episode 6. Bye.